Duty Modern Warfare 2, we know what it takes to get through the game without shooting, but what if you wanted to get through the game at Sonic the Hedgehog level fast? Well, Luke and I may be the speedrunning champions of Halo, but Call of Duty campaigns might not be the best bet for us to do a speedrun on. However, Twitch streamer and YouTuber The VK was nice enough to help us out looking through his run because he managed to be a god at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, beating it in just about an hour and a half, and honestly, this is such an amazing feat. He was super helpful in breaking down how he did this run for us, so a huge shout out to him before we jump into this thing because it gets pretty crazy. So let's take a look how this speedrunner managed to beat Modern Warfare 2 in 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 49 seconds. First off, before we can fully understand how he manages to go so quickly through the game, we have to understand a few of the mechanics that he utilizes that helps speed up his movement. In Modern Warfare 2, when you're walking normally, your movement speed is set to around 190 units. However, when you sprint, the game will actually up the amount of units all the way to 285. However, by utilizing strafe jumps and constantly moving your looking direction, you can actually pick up an additional momentum to add to your sprint, which can bring your maximum sprint speed up to 330 units. It's a pretty tricky maneuver to get off, as you kind of have to wobble your way in the direction you want to go while continuously kind of rotating how you're pushing forward. But with enough practice, you can actually fly through some of these levels, and it's really impressive to look at. Now, jumping into the very first level, he moves really quickly through, shooting the first 2 targets from his hip, and then quickly pressing escape to skip the suggestion that pops up to invert your controls. Then you have to quickly shoot through the next targets that pop up, and then when it's time to use the grenade, you have to quickly grab a grenade, throw it, turn around, grab another grenade, and throw it again, so that the second the targets pop up, the grenade will blow up and clear the elimination section as fast as possible. From there, you have to go through the pit section next, which is going to be a little bit interesting, but by utilizing a quick weapon switch out technique, where you switch between your gun and your secondary, you can actually bypass some dialogue that Corporal Dunn normally would say, which lets you start off on the training course a lot faster. From there, it's time to run through the pit. The VK chooses to use the MP5K as an SMG and an M9 as a secondary pistol, and unlike the Spec Ops version of this level, you only have to hit 18 out of the 24 targets to clear this section. The main reason you don't want to use a regular assault rifle, which players might typically be drawn to use, is because an assault rifle will actually slow down your overall speed, where an SMG or a pistol will continue to keep your momentum up. And once you finish this section, you can go ahead and pick the difficulty and begin the main section of the campaign. Now, Team Player is up next, and while it's not necessarily completely required that you shoot everyone, you do have to listen very closely for the dialogue for specific cues to move forward in this level. And the words you're looking for don't show up in subtitles, so you actually have to pay real close attention because you don't want to miss your cue to be able to move further in the level. Now, typically in this level, you have to cross the bridge, and while there is a way you can clear the bridge if you have a high enough frames per second, the standard way of getting through safely without being risky and possibly losing your momentum on a run is to wait for Corporal Dunn to start talking to a pilot for an airstrike. At that point, you can aim your grenade launcher specifically at a very pinpoint place on the bridge, and you can pop the enemies off there, in which then you can quickly run around to where all of these Marines are just kind of hanging out doing nothing. They'll get out of your way after a second. You can run up the bridge and try not to get run over by a car in the process, and jump in to go on through the next section of the level. Then you have a small break for about 2 minutes where you have to just ride around, see the city, see the beautiful locales featured in Modern Warfare 2. It's pretty much near impossible to die while riding in the Humvee. A car will show up blocking your path, and you can take the guys out, which will then take you out of the Humvee, and you have to continue through the level on foot. And from there, you can see just pinpoint running and familiarity with how this level goes and where you're supposed to go is the best way for clearing this level. You actually don't have to kill any of the guys unless they're standing right in front of you, and they might hit you and kill you, which is a really big risk in these Call of Duty games. And you have to be extra careful when you're exiting from the classroom, as there is a lot of hazards that can sandwich you, because for some reason, while we always get to play as these super soldiers, they don't know how to push people out of the way, and they'll get completely stuck between enemies if they get cornered. And if you watch any guides by the VK, it is also incredibly crucial that you make sure you throw a flashbang at General Shepard so you can get the optimum amount of memes. Next up, we're going on to the level Cliffhanger, and honestly, this one is a little bit more complex as there's a lot of different elements going on in this level. You can walk past soap early on, but you want to be careful not to fall off the cliff, which is something I do on a regular playthrough through. But from there, the main goal is just to run from every single objective point as quickly as possible. The VK doesn't even go and kill anyone on any of this first section of this level, so your best bet's just to sprint through it using your newly acquired strafe jumping abilities, and hopefully you actually know the routes through this level to clear the area. You're gonna get shot at a lot and you might get a little bit of a bloody screen. However, if you are quick enough, you should be able to navigate the first two areas without getting killed. We get to the section where Soap and Roach get into the hangar, and Soap will typically take out an enemy as they appear at the end of the hallway. However, if you kill the enemy first, then you actually will save a few seconds than having to watch Soap do the full killing animation. At the point where Soap gets compromised, you activate the C4 and then just make a mad sprint to the area where you go down the hill, quickly turn around, take out the enemies on the top of the hill, and jump on a snowmobile, driving yourself to victory. Also, if you're ever going to try speedrunning this one for yourself, make sure you actually know where you're going when you snowmobile and don't get lost in the process. Next up in this speedrun would be level 4, No Russian, and now this level is incredibly complex, so we're actually just going to go ahead and play the tutorial that the VK put up so you guys can fully understand how to clear this level.
Welcome back to Modern Warfare 2 Complete Speedrun Guide. Skip this level by pressing skip this mission now and confirming it.
Next we're going on to the level Takedown, which is where you have to quickly catch Rojas and shoot him in the leg. There's two ways you can typically get through this section, either running around the corner and quickly shooting Rojas the second you see him, which takes a couple seconds longer than this next option, where you jump out of the car and just immediately wallbang straight through the wall, taking out Rojas. However, obviously going for a wallbang is a little bit riskier and could cause you to have to reset, losing more time, but honestly it's way cooler. If you're going to go for the wallbang though, you have to make sure you're aiming with a pixel perfect accuracy right through the window where you can best time out where he's going to be so you can actually hit him in the leg and not accidentally kill him in the process either. From there, you want to whip out a shotgun and run through the favelas, and this part is actually one of the harder sections to run through, and there are a ton of enemies, so it's something you probably want to practice playing through a few times, as this speedrun is going to start to get a lot more challenging moving forward. You have a lot of things to watch out for. There's going to be enemies shooting you, there's going to be enemies who can just melee you and kill you, and there's also civilians just running around, and this is a part where you're actually going to want to take out the enemies, so you also don't want to kill a civilian and mess up either. As you approach the end of the level, there's the section where they tackle someone off the roof and land on the car, but you want to make sure you don't actually look at it as it happens, so make sure you turn around so you can skip the slow motion animation, saving yourself a couple of seconds, as it will just happen in real time, and you can complete the level Takedown just a couple seconds faster. On the level Wolverines, the first section you don't have too much to worry about until you get closer to the end of the road. Fortunately enough, the BTR that will shoot and hit you if you get in front of it won't actually kill you unless you're standing in front of it for a really long time, so as long as you duck away in the alley quick enough, you should be okay. However, there might be guys in the alleyway with a shotgun that will wreck your day, so make sure you avoid those guys to the best of your abilities and completely make a run across the street using your strafe jumps to get over to Nate's sports bar. Now there's a very interesting Wolverine skip that is utilized here as well, where you try to avoid killing as many enemies as possible when making your sprint to Nate's, because the game can only handle a certain amount of enemies in a single instance, and later in this level there's going to be some trucks that roll up with enemies, and it's better not to have as many enemies coming out of the trucks, so you can actually save a bunch of time by waiting until you get to Nate's, then taking out the enemies as they run closer to you with a sniper, and avoid letting any of them get up onto the roof, because then you'll have to take more time to take those guys out as well. When Sergeant Foley says looks like Ivan's had enough, it's time for you to make a sprint back over to the diner to get ready for the BTRs to show up. You can quickly use a Predator missile to take out both BTRs in one shot, and then you have to completely protect the most important restaurant in all of Call of Duty history, Burger Town. And one really important thing to remember if you're going for a speedrun here is that you need to kill every single enemy that is set to protect Burger Town, and there's going to be a lot of guys running out of Burger Town, and they might even run across the street, but if they're coming from Burger Town, they're counted as protecting Burger Town, and you have to kill those guys or else you won't be able to move forward in the level. So don't let anyone who stepped foot in Burger Town get away, because that is our place to protect. From there, the next strategy is to make a dash for the back area of the gas station, as it's a safe place to be, and use the Predator missile to spawn kill the next set of waves of enemies as they come in. And honestly, knowing where these spawns are can be super helpful if you get the timing down to clearing this level much faster than a standard run. Then there's going to be some helicopters that show up, which you're going to have to take down with a stinger, speedrunner. But other than that, this level that normally takes forever to complete in a normal playthrough, using speedrun strats, speedrunners have been able to get times as low as 6.5 minutes to about 7.5 minutes, which is a really big change from what this level is typically seen as. Next, we're going to be going into Hornets Nest, and this level is also going to have some pretty challenging parts for a speedrun. This level is very straightforward, but it also is one of the most challenging levels and most unforgiving levels, as you have to go a really long way, mostly just avoiding enemies if you're going for an optimum time, while also not having any real checkpoints to fall back on if you do happen to mess up. So going without being able to even have a somewhat of a restart point is really challenging in itself. There's a lot of enemies, a lot of people who are just gonna melee kill you if you're not careful, but if you can make your way all the way over to the soccer field, you can quickly take out the guys on the rooftop. You could do some awesome parkour that you have to be careful not to mess up on in the process, which lets you skip ahead onto the rooftop a few seconds earlier. When you get to the end of the run to the chopper, you actually don't want to jump. You can bypass the whole animation where you typically fall off the roof if you just jump into the pit down below, saving you quite a bit of time, and then from there you have to run through the rest of the section and jump on the chopper to escape. You just want to make sure when you're jumping to the chopper, you stop strafe jumping, or else you might strafe jump completely off the map, missing the helicopter, dying, and having to restart. I'm having flashbacks when I played this not even speedrunning, and I just missed, so thanks. Going into the next level, the main strategy is to just run forward, dodging shots, and pistol out the machine gun as quickly as possible. Then you just use your regular hobble all the way through the map as quickly as you can, getting to the section where there's 2 anti-aircraft guns where you have to mark them with lasers. From there, you just quickly move up to the end house, and essentially it's important that you wait for Foley to get up to the second floor before you enter the panic room, because otherwise you'll lose a ton of time because Foley will just take his sweet time for whatever reason. On the only easy day was yesterday. It's really important that in the first section you kill the first guard as quickly as you can, because there is a timed section in between the moment you kill the guard before you're ready to breach. After breaching, you're gonna have to quickly kill the enemy on the left and then do the YY switch, which we figured out how to do during our no shoot run, which essentially has you switching weapons and quickly switching back to shake off the slow motion and take out the rest of the enemies before proceeding through the level. From there, you'll have to hustle to the second breaching section, and one thing that's also good to know is that you don't have to reload your gun and take the time to do that, because your gun will just auto reload when you breach the next door. From there, you just breach through as quickly as you can and push through the rest of the level, just moving pretty much very quickly and trying not to die while picking off enemies and continuously pushing forward. When you get to the last section with all the smoke, it's mostly important you clear all the enemies in front of the breaching area so that you can trigger the sequence as quickly as possible, and then rush to the helicopter so that you can get on the heli as quickly as possible, because if you take your time, Soap will just go off and do some random thing, which will make this level much longer than it needs to be. Going into the level the Gulag, it's very important that in this level, as opposed to other levels, you actually take out the enemies, as certain sections of the level won't open up until your teammates move up with you, so essentially you need to clear the way for them. From the part where he's holding off inside of the main middle section, there is a part where you have to kill the enemies as they're coming in, and essentially as the enemies spawn, one of their guns will actually clip through the wall, which is a great indicator to find out when it's time to shoot at the enemies with a noob tube. As you proceed through the rest of the level, there's a part where the Navy starts bombing the Gulag and everything gets all dizzy and you move real slow, but if you throw a concussion grenade right before that happens, you can actually break the concussion that's caused by the Navy attacking and run through it a lot faster, because your concussion grenade overrides it, but it's also shorter. From there, you can just hustle through the rest of this level and you can clear this one as well. And next, we're going on to Of Their Own Accord. Now, in this first part, when you're running through the beginning area, you have to be careful not to run into any of your friendly soldiers, as they have these long death animations that will not let you pass them until after their death animation is finished. So you kind of gotta bob and weave, avoiding running into your own teammates. When you get to the part with a lot of enemies, you don't have to kill any of the enemies, but it definitely might help because you don't want to die either. But for the most part, your main goal is just to run through the building as quickly as you can. When you get to the top of the tower, you're gonna have to make sure you set up claymores to properly kill enemies that will spawn coming after you later, and then snipe the enemies and use the javelins to take out the BTRs as quickly as you can before running up the staircase to escape this level. On the level Contingency, you actually run into some really interesting problems that you might not run into in regular levels in this game. But one main concern is the fact that price can cause your entire level to completely softlock if you're not careful enough. In the beginning section, you're going to want to pretty much much run through killing everything that you can and keeping an eye of where price is on your mini-map before pushing up to the next area and just pretty much killing every single enemy that is in your way. From there, you make your way up to the building, clearing as many enemies as you can and hoping that you clear the way fast enough so that price will move up and you don't have a soft lock situation. And then you want to quickly make a dash all the way back to the village so you can avoid Ghost saying dialogue to Price, which will make Price end the level much quicker. When you get to the level Second Sun, there's not too much you have to worry about here. However, the VK does recommend that you grab an RPD, as for some reason in this specific level, your weapons will carry over into the next level, and it's a little more helpful to have going forward. Next, we're going on to Whiskey Hotel, which, by the way, I never really realized that Whiskey Hotel stood for the initials of White House. I'm just saying, I've been playing Modern Warfare 2 for well over 10 years now. I only noticed this now. Moving forward, the main strategy here is just to make a mad sprint for the kitchen, because as soon as you hit the kitchen door, all the enemies despawn, which is a really cool strategy if you think about it. Going into loose ends at the beginning when the bouncing Bettys jump up, the best bet is to quickly throw a stun grenade at them, which will override the stun that you have from the cutscene animation happening. It'll save you a few seconds, which is nice. From there, you make a mad sprint into the house, breaching all of the rooms using the YY trick to quickly clear each room, except you can't use it on the last basement door. You have to clear every single enemy in the house, so the main thing to go off of is a musical cue, which will change up when it's time to plant the USB stick into the computer. And then from there, you just have to hold out for 5 minutes waiting for the download to complete. We all know the struggle of slow internet, and it appears like S.S.D.D isn't any better. Otherwise, you just make the mad sprint at the end to General Shepard where he'll oof you, and then you've completed this level as well. Enemy of My Enemy is actually another really straightforward level and is one of the easier ones here. The main thing is just to sprint through in a most straightforward way as possible, making sure just to kill these 2 enemies here, because otherwise it'll mess up your entire run moving forward. But as long as you get them, you're good to go, and you can just sprint to the end where you get picked up in the car and complete this level as well. On Just Like Old Times, one of the final levels in this game, you just have to push forward down the hill, killing the first set of enemies, and then immediately start looking around for any gun that has a grenade launcher on it. If you can't find one, you'll have to grab an SMG instead, but it's suggested you get that grenade launcher action going. This is important because when you get to the part with the caves, you have to actually breach a door, but the only way you can activate the door opening up is if you clear the enemies surrounding the vicinity. So using a grenade launcher is really useful just to take them out quickly, which will let you move ahead into the breaching process as soon as possible. From there, you could do the breach and then do a quick YY switch to get the slow motion to come off. And we're finally moving on to endgame. On this one, just knowing how to steer the boat is really important, and you want to make sure you don't get hit by RPGs along the way, as they might turn your boat around. And there's also a few underwater rocks that can completely knock your boat off of course, so you have to avoid them. But otherwise, you just continue to move as quickly as you can through the driving section here. And when you're in the final part where you're all injured after you crash the boat because you YOLO'd it off of a waterfall, you can save a couple of seconds by attempting to melee Shepard, which will give you a little burst of speed, which will bring you along into the final sequence faster, thus letting you throw your knife eventually at Shepard and finish your speed run once and for all. And honestly, looking through this run, it's really interesting to see how this was done. The VK has, like we said, a time under an hour and a half, and with some of these levels, there's parts set up that are literally there just as fillers to make the level longer, and finding those bypasses were really cool to see. When we were talking to the VK about this challenge and doing speedruns like this in Modern Warfare 2, he did point out that this game is very easy to learn, and looking through this, I can see how anyone could pick up this game, but some of the execution obviously is much harder, and chaining together a run without a lot of flaws slowing you down is incredibly difficult. So it's very impressive to see a Modern Warfare 2 run that is as fast as this one. Also, we really appreciate the fact that over on the VK's channel, he literally has a level-to-level guide that details how you can complete every single level in the speedrun, which made making this video so much more easier. It was just all laid out there really well. So huge thank you to the VK for letting us use his footage and looking through this stuff, because it made it so much easier to do. If you're looking to learn this game, I highly recommend you look at this channel, because there's no better guide. But honestly, this is such a blast to look at these types of runs. We really enjoy covering covering the speedrun videos over here on this channel. So if you want to see more games speedrun covered like this in the way that we do these types of videos, leave a comment down below with any recommendations you have. Be sure to subscribe with notifications also on if you're not subscribed already. I know a ton of people have really recently found our channel, and just double check that you're actually subscribed, because YouTube's been blessing us with some recommended lately, and we really appreciate that too. If you guys do like our video though, also follow us on Twitter at Rocket Elijah for me and at Rocket Sloth Luke for Luke, and we'll see you guys all next time with a brand new video. Bye guys.